I grew up in what I thought was a decent family. We weren't rich, but we had enough. My parents always preached about hard work, saving for the future, and standing by family no matter what. But there was one huge problem with that philosophy. It only seemed to apply when it came to my older brother, Ryan. He was their golden child, the boy who could do no wrong even when he was drowning in problems of his own making. Ryan was a gambling addict. It started when he was 19 and got hooked on sports betting. At first, it was just small wagers, 50 here, 100 there. But soon, he was maxing out credit cards, borrowing money from shady people, and then crying to our parents for help. And they always helped. Always. I, on the other hand, was the responsible one. I worked my way through college, saved up every dollar I could, and managed to put away enough for a down payment on a small condo. My plan was simple: live within my means, invest, and maybe, just maybe, get ahead in life. That all changed when Ryan's gambling spiraled completely out of control. I came home from work one day to find my bank account completely emptied. I thought it had to be a mistake, some kind of fraud, but then I saw the transfer history. The money hadn't been stolen by a hacker. It had been moved directly to Ryan's account. I lost it. I drove straight to my parents' house, where Ryan was sitting in the kitchen, looking guilty, but not nearly guilty enough. Mom and Dad were there too, and instead of being furious, they acted like I was overreacting. "Mine needed help," Mom said softly. "Help!" I shouted. "He stole everything I had." Dad's response was the kicker. "He's your brother. You should support him through his mistakes." That was the first time I truly realized that no matter what I did, no matter how much I worked or saved, I would never be more important to them than Ryan. But the real betrayal came a month later, when I learned they had signed over the family house, the house my grandparents built, the house they always promised would be mine one day, to Ryan. Their reasoning? He needs stability to get back on his feet. That's when something in me broke, and I knew I wasn't going to just let this go.
The day I found out about the house, I didn't cry, I didn't yell. I went silent. It's strange how betrayal works. First it's fire, then it's ice. I sat there at the kitchen table while my mom explained it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. "Ryan needs a fresh start," she said, pouring herself coffee like we were talking about the weather. My dad just nodded along, adding, "You've always been the independent one. You'll be fine." Those words hit harder than I expected. "You'll be fine." That was their excuse for giving everything to him, because I didn't need their help. But that house wasn't just help. It was the only thing left in our family that meant something. My grandfather had laid the foundation with his own hands, my grandmother had planted the apple tree out front, and I had spent summers repainting the porch and fixing the roof with my dad when I was a kid. And now, it was Ryan's. I walked out without saying a word. I didn't answer their calls for days. Meanwhile, I heard from mutual friends that Ryan had already started celebrating his big win, throwing parties in the house, drinking, gambling online again. No fresh start, just the same Ryan, now with property in his name. That's when I decided I wasn't going to just watch my family's history get flushed away. I started digging. If Ryan thought he could just sit there and keep gambling without consequences, he didn't know who he was dealing with. I knew he was sloppy with money, but I wanted to find proof that would hurt him more than anything. I quietly reached out to a friend of mine who worked at a local bank. I didn't ask for anything illegal, but I mentioned Ryan's gambling and debts, and she hinted that a guy like him probably had liens and outstanding collections piling up. All I had to do was wait and make sure those collectors knew exactly where to find him. And while I was waiting, I started building my own war chest. I cut expenses, took on extra freelance work, and moved every spare dollar into a separate account under a different bank. If Ryan or my parents ever tried to pull the same stunt again, they'd find nothing to take. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about the house.
It was about the way my parents had always treated me like a safety net while Ryan got to be the one they saved. I was done being their backup plan. I wasn't going to beg for the house back. I was going to make sure Ryan couldn't keep it.
It started with a knock on Ryan's door. Not my knock, not a neighbor's. The kind of knock that makes your stomach drop because it's too loud, too firm, too certain. I wasn't there, but I heard about it from a friend who lived across the street. Two men in dark jackets, one with a clipboard, one with a folder, stood there talking to Ryan for a long time. My friend swore she saw Ryan's face go pale. That was the first visit. Over the next few weeks, the knocks came more often. Different people each time. Some in cheap suits, some looking like they just stepped out of a bar, all holding papers. And Ryan? He started avoiding people, closing the blinds during the day, parking his car 2 blocks away. I kept my distance, but I kept my eyes open. I'd walk past the house, see the porch light off, hear the TV blaring at 3 a.m. It was the sound of someone drowning and trying not to admit it. My plan wasn't magic. I hadn't set him up in some movie-style plot. I just made sure the people he owed money to knew exactly where to find him. Every debt he'd racked up over the years, every IOU from a poker table or sports bet, it all came crashing in at once. And the beauty of it? I didn't lift a finger to stop it. I didn't even have to get my hands dirty. But here's the thing about gamblers. They always think they can dig themselves out. Ryan started pawning things. First, the TV, then some furniture. Then, from what I heard, even the tools in the shed my dad had given him. But gambling doesn't forgive, it just eats. The collectors wanted money, not excuses. And when they didn't get it, they started talking about liens. Liens on the house. The house my parents had so selflessly given him. The same house my mom told me was Ryan's fresh start. I couldn't help but laugh at the thought. He was going to lose it. Not to me, but to his own mistakes. And I was going to be right there when it happened. I started preparing, quietly, talking to a lawyer friend about property auctions, researching how to buy a foreclosed house. Because if the universe wanted to hand me my family's home back on a silver platter, I was going to take it. Not out of kindness, not out of nostalgia, out of sheer poetic justice.
The letter came on a Wednesday morning. I knew before I even opened it what it was. My lawyer friend had told me the process step by step, and this was the step I'd been waiting for. Notice of foreclosure. Bold letters, all caps, sitting right at the top of the page like a death sentence. The house my parents had signed over to Ryan because he was their golden boy was officially being seized. I didn't have to imagine his face when he read it because an hour later I got a call from him. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "Hey, it's me," he said, his voice low, cracked. "I need to talk to you. Please." I leaned back in my chair, letting him sweat through the silence. "Talk," I said flatly. I messed up, okay? I'm in trouble. They're taking the house. I don't have anywhere to go. I need some money to... I cut him off. "The money you stole from me? From Mom and Dad? Or are we talking about the house they gave you instead of me?" He went quiet, then tried to chuckle like we were sharing a joke. "Come on, man. I was going through a bad time. You know me." "Yeah, that's the problem. I do know you." He tried to convince me he'd pay me back, swore up and down this was just a rough patch and that he'd never forget if I helped him now. But I wasn't there to be his lifeline. I was there to watch him sink. "I can't help you," I finally said, "but I'll see you at the auction." He didn't understand at first. Then it hit him. "You're not serious," he whispered. "Dead serious," I said, and hung up. The next month was like watching a slow-motion car crash. Ryan tried everything, calling old friends, hitting up our cousins, even begging our parents to fix this. But they didn't have the money to cover his debts, and honestly, I think even they were starting to see him for what he was. On auction day, I stood in the back, arms crossed as the bidding started. Ryan was there too, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. The price climbed, but I stayed calm. I knew my limit, and I knew most people weren't interested in a house with a gambling history tied to it. When the auctioneer's hammer came down, the house was mine. Mine, the one they'd stolen from me in every way that mattered. I walked past Ryan on my way out. He looked at me like I'd just kicked him in the chest. "You don't have to do this," he muttered. I leaned close enough so only he could hear. "No, Ryan, I get to do this."
The day I got the keys, the air felt different. Not just in the house, but inside me. It was the smell of victory, mixed with years of resentment, finally finding a home. I didn't rush to move in right away. No, that would have been too easy for Ryan. I waited until I knew he was at his absolute lowest, crashing on some friend's couch, pawning off whatever scraps he still had, pretending he was figuring things out, while secretly praying for a miracle. That miracle never came. I made sure of it. On the day I moved in, I had a truck pull up in front of the house at 7 a.m. sharp, loud enough to wake the dead. Ryan was there on the sidewalk, pretending like he'd just happened to be in the area. I didn't acknowledge him. I just started unloading my things, directing the movers like I'd been planning this moment my whole life. Every box, every piece of furniture felt like a declaration. I won, you lost. I walked up the steps with my head high, turned the key, and opened the door that was once his, the door my parents had handed him on a silver platter while I got scraps. Except now it was mine. I took my time setting up the living room, hanging family photos I'd taken from Mom and Dad's place, ones where Ryan wasn't even in the frame. Then I went outside, leaned against the doorway, and finally looked at him. "You know, Ryan," I said, "it's funny how life works. You stole my money, my trust, and then my parents gave you this house like you were some kind of hero. But here we are, and now it's mine, every single inch of it." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "The best part? You can't even come inside unless I let you." He looked like he wanted to say something clever, but all that came out was a bitter laugh. "Enjoy it while you can," he muttered. I smiled, stepping back inside and slowly closing the door until his face was just a sliver in the gap. "Oh, I will," I said. Then I locked it. The sound of that deadbolt clicking was the sweetest music I'd ever heard. That night, I sat in the living room with a glass of whiskey, lights low, the house quiet except for the creak of the old floors. I thought about how many times I'd been made to feel like I was second best, like I wasn't worth as much as him. But now, every wall, every window, every tile was proof that I'd been right all along. I didn't just get the house back, I took back my dignity, and that was worth more than anything Ryan could ever gamble away.